Today, we address the assumptions that the Swarmer is going to get a nerf in Tower Defense Simulator. But first, some discussion about some skins that were in the game but have been removed because they were added on a very specific day, which is not a bank holiday or national holiday or federal holiday. I'm talking about May the 4th skins. Now, as you can probably imply from the name, May the 4th is a celebration of Star Wars Day, a play on the words May the Force be with you. On the May the 4th update, back in 2024, two skins were added to the game, namely the Vanquisher Executioner skin and the Senator Accelerator skin. These skins are a reference to Star Wars, which is what May the 4th apparently celebrates. The Senator Accelerator commemorates Emperor Palpatine. Well, Emperor Palpatine. He was a senator. This looks like the senator at the time. Meanwhile, the Vanquisher skin for the Executioner is apparently based on the Inquisitors from Star Wars. Jedi Hunters, shall we say. So, very clearly, the developers went for the dark side of things when it came to May the 4th skins last year. Now, this year, with May the 4th being tomorrow, some people have asked whether these skins will return to Tower Defense Simulator or not. So the answer to that, I don't know. But I can speculate on that. And my likely guess is they probably will not be re-added to the game, because last year we had exclusive toilet mode skins that were added to the deluxe crate, which these two skins were, the Senator Accelerator and the Vanquisher Executioner. So last year, one of the skins that were added to the premium crate was the Toilet Soldier. This beauty of a skin. It was a legendary skin in the premium crate, and once the toilet mode update was ended after like a week, it was removed from the premium crates. Now, initially, the TV Electroshocker and the other skins that were in the deluxe crate were also meant to get the same treatment. However, Blow Natural did a poll, and the toilet mode update skins that were in the deluxe crate, they were kept around. Meanwhile, in the premium crate, those skins were removed. This year, however, the Toilet Soldier never actually was re-added to the game, despite the toilet mode update game mode, which was just toilet mode at the time, being re-added. Now that is because toilet mode is always meant to reactivate on the 1st of April every year and last a week until the 8th of April, whereas the skins need to be manually re-added to the game. And because of that, I don't think that the May the 4th skins will be re-added, because the other skins from the April Fool's update 2024 were not re-added. That being said though, Tyler is supposedly a big Star Wars fan. I mean, his name on Discord is just called Star Wars, so I suspect that had he got his way, the skins might be re-added. The May the 4th update, if it were to take place this year, would take place on a Sunday, so I'm not sure if developers are actually online, and I don't know if the developers would actually re-add them, because they would have to manually redo it. And I'm not sure if it's actually worth the effort of re-adding the skins just for a May the 4th update. Whether or not we'll get any new skins for May the 4th update, if it ever occurs, that we'll just have to wait and see. I genuinely don't think that we would. I would like to be proven wrong, because new content is always good content. And maybe we could get some light themed skins, or light side themed skins, rather than just the dark side. You know, just the Senator and the Vanquisher. That being said though, the Vanquisher Executioner is the best skin for the Executioner, in my opinion. The Senator? No, not so much, no. Next, we have speculation on the Swarmer potentially getting nerfed. Now, this is because there was an assumption that the Swarmer was too powerful, especially because it was an event tower. In the past, event towers usually have not been that powerful because it would limit the meta, basically, to an exclusive tower that you can only get seasonally, and after the season ends, get it through a game pass, which most people do not like. For example, when the Gladiator was a meta tower, people were really annoyed of it only coming back during sales, that other towers slowly power crept up to the Gladiator, and eventually the Gladiator was surpassed by this power creep. Now, when the Swarmer was released, people found it to be way too powerful. I'm talking it can solo hardcore mode. I'm talking it can solo Polluted Wastelands 2. It could probably solo a lot of game modes on its own, well, probably in combination with other towers, but the Swarmer is being perceived as too powerful, and the fact that it's locked behind a Game Pass which costs 800 Robux has annoyed a lot of people. So this has led to some speculation on whether or not the Swarmer is going to get a nerf in the next update, and a tester has come out and said that this is probably likely to be the case. Now, do bear in mind that this is in balancing feedback. Not everything here is subject nor obligated to make it into the game, so even a Swarmer nerf is not outright confirmed. This is merely just speculation officially. And the assumption was that the Swarmer was going to get a massive nerf after the Game Pass was taken off sale. And that this person is addressing some of the points to the best of their ability, and everything here must be taken with a grain of salt. Nothing here is confirmed, outright confirmed. A Swarmer nerf is not confirmed. But this person says that it is likely that the Swarmer will receive a nerf. However, they are working hard, the testers, to keep it relatively strong and comparable, if not better, than other meta DPS towers, which is including the likes of the Golden Minigunner, the Accelerator, the Engineer, the Ranger, the Turret, those towers, basically. Some arguments on whether something like the Accelerator or the Golden Minigunner count as meta DPS towers, but essentially that's what this is being compared to. This is not to say that a potential Swarmer nerf will be perfectly balanced, and at the end of the day, the QA tester team is working with what they've got on their time frame, and everyone has to agree, and it's hard for everyone to agree on what is the best balance for a tower like the Swarmer, given the fact that it is an event tower, and event towers usually should not be, and it's an unwritten rule, that they should not be the best in their niche. This person says personally they keep the tower in a pretty good spot, but I understand it's extremely busted as it is, aka it shouldn't be able to solo hardcore mode or Polluted Wastelands 2, and that they'll be trying their best to make sure Robux feels well spent after any nerfs applied to the Swarmer. Of course, this assumes that everyone who has a Swarmer bought it through Robux. Not the case for me, but I realise that I'm probably in the minority now. They also suggest or confirm to us that testing leading up to the Swarmer rework was extremely rocky and a lot of bugs went unnoticed until last minute, because, well, when you're reworking a tower, nothing goes smoothly. And with a tower with a reputation as a Swarmer being so bugged previously, yeah, you can see how difficult it is to balance a Swarmer and have like a new meta in the game. There was a bug with how stacking was not discovered until they were nearing release, which is one of the biggest contributing factors on why the tower was so strong. I'd assume that's because that was a issue with like stacking not even working or working too well, and it was fixed very, very last minute, but there was no time to test this fix, which led to the tower being so strong, especially in the stacking side of things. There were things on the QA side that could be done to alleviate these issues, but I mean, it's last minute. Who really expects like a perfectly polished tower? There is no such thing as a perfectly balanced tower. Everyone is going to have an opinion, which means that tower is not perfectly balanced. This statement is being said to address some of the statements that they've been heard being thrown around. And the developers do not endorse this message, and it's just their side of the situation, and not to go after anyone, especially on the QA side of things. Am I surprised that the Swarmer is going to get a nerf? No. Is it well deserved? Up to debate. Should anyone be attacked for a nerf or the initial balancing of the Swarmer? No. Is the Swarmer ever going to be released as a non-Robux tower for a Game Pass? Never. However, it does seem interesting that the testers want to keep the power of the Swarmer because of its high Robux price. This has not normally been the case previously. The price is just like an indicator of how recent that the Game Pass was, or how hard it was to actually get the tower, not rather what the tower actually does. For example, the Swarmer costs 799 Robux, while the Biologist tower costs 849 Robux. And most people would argue that the Biologist is probably not better than the Swarmer. Well, if you ignore the fact that the Swarmer is unable to cause enemies to get stuck, but the Biologist can't do that anymore. But for a period of time, it was the best tower in the game purely because of that. Given the fact that most of the power of the Swarmer comes from the stacking ability, especially against final bosses, which makes hardcore mode and Polluted Wastelands 2 light work because of the amount of stacks that it can get on the final boss, I would assume it is the stacking ability of the Swarmer that's going to get nerfed. Currently, the Swarmer has a 150 bee sting stack maximum for each individual Swarmer, and overall, the maximum amount of stings that an enemy can have is 5,000. I would assume that either both of them or one of them is going to get a nerf in the next update, so perhaps we're looking at maybe 2,000 B stacks, or 1,000 B stacks, or maybe even like 20 B stacks per tower on an individual enemy. There's no discussion on whether this will be applied to hordes, for example. Like, would the Swarmer be able to carry over its swarm ability to, say, the other enemies that it could potentially attack? For example, if the Swarmer is set to random, it should be able to target enemies that may not be stung and be able to maybe stack upon them, which could be a way to bypass any limits on a certain enemy that the Swarmer may have. But then again, most of the power of the Swarmer comes from the stack ability onto one singular enemy, which makes bosses a light work with the Swarmer. We'll just have to officially see what the Swarmer nerf, if it ever comes, mind you, what it would look like. I just find it interesting that most people assumed before this update that the Swarmer will be buffed, and it was indeed actually buffed. It was kind of already powerful previously, but in this update, they decided to make it even more powerful. By accident, it seems like, through what the messages are saying on balancing feedback. It's incredible that the Nerf options and neither nearly have the same amount of votes. The only difference in votes here is 1 vote. Most people wanted the Swarmer rework to be buffed, and it was buffed. This is alongside the other buffs or other changes that testers have theorized. So for example here, the Gatling gun buff, accelerator rebalance / buff, engineer rebalance / buff, and minor ranger nerf. For this, it'll just be total DPS would remain roughly the same, mainly messing around with costs, and most people actually agree with these changes. This person says that there's a lot of requests to buff the accelerator and Gatling gun recently, because right now the meta is very dominant on towers with no stun or compressed unstunnable DPS, ranger and pursuit, and that it's not very easy to make towers like the accelerator be able to compete with those guys without doing a complete meta shift. Furthermore, there's not necessarily going to be plans to nerf the pursuit or anything of the late nature, but implies that the late game meta might change around a bit. I mean, we see this with, what is it, the Ducky event, Revenge event, where the Ranger and the Pursuit are literally the towers to use against the bosses due to their long ranges and the ability for them to move around, but also the fact that they can't be stunned. And especially because people aren't buying the bunny sentries, it seems like, the stuns are going to hamper you quite a fair bit, especially on its power move attack. Towers get stunned for 8 seconds. That is one of the longest stuns in the game.